and welcome to another episode of the 20 Minute Moat podcast. We have a very special guest with us today. I'm joined by Vittorio Barraja, who's a senior director at one of the largest media houses, PhD, and has a very, very wide experience working with a lot of very interesting travel and e-commerce brands. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about, the whole everything that matters around digital transformation and how conversational AI, automation, and customer experience, all of these things are going to play in. So before I go on and on about Vittorio, I thought it'd be better if he himself gives us a little intro on his role, his journey, and what his thoughts are on all of these things. So welcome to the show, Vittorio. Very, very happy to have you.
Thanks very much for the invitation. It's my pleasure to be here today with you. And also thanks for the nice introduction. My name is Vittorio Barraja. I'm from Italy. I started my journey in studying mathematics and business management. After that, I immediately initiated a career in digital space, mostly around performance marketing and user acquisition, where I spent in overall 11 years now. It's quite a long time, actually. And throughout the years, I've been working on multiple projects, almost completely around pure e-commerce players. So where online sales represent above 90% of the overall mix, as well as some luxury. And I recently joined the media space with PhD, which is, as you said, part of, I would say, the second, perhaps largest media network in the world, Omnicom.
Yeah. So
that's me.
Yeah, that's quite an expansive experience you had. And that's also why I feel like this conversation is going to be really helpful and really insightful. So let's jump right into the conversation then. So there's a lot of talk around digital transformation in almost every industry. It's no longer some kind of a choice that an organization has to, have this option of, okay, do I want to be digital first or do I want digital to be a priority? It's the same again for brands and for, again, customer support and experience. So what's behind this hype? Is it all hype, or is, what's the kind of solid work that goes when you talk about customer support or customer experience and brands' engagement with their users and customers, and how does it fit into this notion, this larger than life notion of digital transformation? How is it changing the world?
So let's perhaps approach this question from 2 points of view. The first one is about the actual digital transformation topic for the world. And then the second one is going to be about the customer support in general, customer experience, and being in touch with clients or whoever is the person or the people the business relates to. In terms of digital transformation, it's a little bit of both, I will say. There's a huge hype around this topic, and for sure, not all of this hype is actually translating into something, but for sure, let's say the science of digital transformation is becoming more and more real. At the same time, pretty much any business in the world is now opening up to the professional figure of digital experts or digital transformation experts to be able to relook at each single particular step or process into the organization in order to digitalize it, or to digitalize the experience of the customers with that particular brand. So on this regard, I absolutely feel like, yes, the world is changing, and it's changing very fast. However, if we look in terms of, is this something consolidated, or is it something that it's replicable all over the place in a similar way, which by the end defines what's a science or scientific method? No, not yet, but we're getting there, absolutely. In terms of customer experience or customer support, absolutely yes. This is happening at a super fast pace. I would say right now the most interesting evolution we're seeing the customer support side on digital aspect in the digital space. Apologies, it's chatbots or conversational AI. The market penetration is absolutely astonishing. if I want to remember, around 2018, the overall chat box penetration was about 5% worldwide. In 2019, went up to 15 or 20%. In 2020, 50% worldwide. It's currently business evaluated $18 billion. And I mean, $18 billion, it's a little bit more than hype. It's absolutely very, very real.
That's what drives home the point that this is happening, and it's happening at a pace where everyone needs to, catch up to. It's happening, and I think in the last 2 years there's been a lot of catalysts. So the pandemic is one which forced people to, reimagine what digital transformation means for those individual brands, and I think. Customer support and customer experience, those touch points for a customer is a make or break for a brand. How they interact with this particular brand. I think you've gone into a little bit of what I had next. I wanted to ask you about how does customer support fit the bill when it comes to digital transformation? What why is it so? Why is it like the best place for a brand to showcase how digital first or what their digital priorities are, and how does customer support fit the bill when we're talking about digital transformation in the space itself?
That's a very interesting question. I mean, of course, the right answer would be it depends by the specific business.
Yes.
However, let's say I believe there are some common trends that can be analyzed. So in terms of digital transformation, or in terms of brands which are now much more present online, as you very much know, there's a huge focus into first off being supportive because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
At the same time, there is also a very, very, very pronounced trend in having the necessity to be present on multiple platforms at the same time.
Absolutely.
So if you look at the what we consider digitalization up to 5 years ago, a classic digitalization was about, and I'm saying this smiling because today it's absolutely old school, having a website. Having a website was already, wow, you're a digital business. Having a nice mobile website makes you
even cooler.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're taking the leap. It's great. Yeah. Nowadays, I actually believe there are plenty of business that are testing of not having a website to start with. The concept of social selling, social commerce, as well as being present on multiple platforms is absolutely mandatory. The community management is often not done on the website, but done on social media.
Yeah. Where
the amount of queries is just beyond what can be managed by humans, but also it's very hard to imagine such an amount of queries, or just such the necessity of responding to everyone in a consistent and coherent way all the time. So in this regard, conversational AI makes a huge difference. At the same time, I very much believe in the rule 2080. The vast majority of queries coming from people can be really grouped into common topics. And in this point, if a company or if a conversational AI is trained in a proper way, can really support people without having to deploy other people, making the whole process much faster. In the end, this helps customers. It's very important.
I think, this sort of brings us to, a greater emphasis on, smart digital solutions for a brand can not only make the lives of, say, human agents a lot easier, they can prioritize. And, I wanted to sort of talk about this as well. Given that a lot of brands are digital first and, they are, you have nothing tangible to, work with as a customer. And you rely so much on the quality of that experience in order for you to make that decision, should I come back to this brand or should I not? And I just wanted to get your thoughts on, how do brands who work well with, conversational AI or automation, how do they create that sense of community within, their customer base? And that creates a lot of trust. It's brilliant for the brand, but it's also brilliant for the customer because he or she has gone out with an experience that is quite unique to that particular brand, and there is an incentive to come back. So, yeah.
once again, I believe this question should be taken from two different angles. The first angle is how modern businesses tend to create the concept of a community, which is very relevant, very recent, or changing quite a lot, especially in the last couple of years.
Yes, yeah.
The second point is how brands are actually building loyalty, which is a different topic, and more specifically, how can a brand operate through customer support in order to increase the retention of the client. So from a community perspective, this is actually a very recent topic. I believe Morning Brew was recently talking about it. It was the CEO, stating how, as a matter of fact, he expects in the next 5 years the big marketing budget to shift from customer acquisition, so the classic Facebook, I mean, any major partner in the world, to actually move towards community building and management and content creation. If we look at some extremely successful brands in terms of customer loyalty, we might talk about, community management, perhaps Porsche, it's a great example. Okay. Or Nike, or so Nike and Adidas are great at this game. What you're going to notice is the brand tries to associate some emotional feelings to the actual product. When you purchase a Porsche, or when you purchase a piece of sportwear from Nike, you are not just buying an item, because an item, does not generate any kind of feeling in terms of community. You are fulfilling a dream, if you're perhaps buying the car of your dreams, or you are joining a journey for fitness that empowers you. As a part of that, the people that join this kind of, let's say, path together tend to connect on an emotional level. And this is how brands are actually building the community. They create these occasions for people to gather together, whether it's digital or in person, and let them share their passion with each other. And this creates a bond between the customers and the brand. It's basically a triangle, and it works really great, truth be told. It's very powerful. Now, in terms of actually the customer, the loyalty, the retention of the customer, this is a different ball game, and very much depends on the customer support. So I completely agree with you. In this case, I will move from, let's say, physical products, which are a little bit, I want to say, on the easy side, to digital products, perhaps travel. Okay, when you purchase digitally something which is pretty much like a commodity, so it's very hard to build a sense of community out of a commodity, in fact. And at this point, what really matters is how you get serviced. And that's the real deal. In this case, I strongly believe, and this is something in my previous work we discussed a lot in terms of management team, how can we ensure a response rate of 100% and as much as possible satisfaction rate?
Yes.
So, and this is a completely different ball game. It really depends a lot on what you're selling and the conditions. Of course, during the pandemic, a lot of things happen, so it's very hard to let's say create a common case about it. But in general, or if I can take a rule of thumb, I would say maximizing the response rate is absolutely the first step towards generating retention. And conversational AI is actually one of the best ways so far to ensure to maximize this KPI.
Interesting. I mean, like, it's quite interesting how you put it. When there is no physical commodity, so much depends more on the overall experience, that it has to be greater than the sum of the parts. And if you can add emotions to it, and if you can add a kind of aspiration to it, customers are going to retain that, because at the end of the day, the commodity fades away eventually. It could be a service that you already used. It could be a product that you've used and you no longer think of it as a new thing. But I think that emotional quotient and that aspirational angle really sticks with the customer. Now, like we're talking about, brilliant and delightful customer experiences. Do you think there is a mismatch between, or do you think there is this issue with expectations from customers? And as a brand, say for example, who works in travel, offers booking services, or even a B2C brand or an e-commerce brand that's selling something. How do you deal with the expectations customers have? I as a customer, when I submit a ticket, I'm going to be priority number one. And from an operational point of view, what are the biggest challenges a brand faces in such a scenario, especially when it's digital and there is this, very, very heightened sense of expectation? How do you ensure that the quality of service every time is, kind of uniform and fulfilling?
That's a $1 billion question, at least, probably more than $1 billion question. Again, let's split in two. When perhaps you sell a physical product, something that can be shipped, let's make it easy, commerce, classic kind of organization, or, and the second case, digital only products. In this case, I'm going to use travel because it's a little bit more my cup of tea. In terms of in terms of physical products, of course, let's say happy customers are complex to get. Of course, the digital transformation does not only touch businesses, but also people, which means that the bar keeps raising. And it's normal. That's how it should be. Purchasing online is becoming easier and easier. I mentioned before social commerce is absolutely a big trend, more than a trend right now, it's a reality. So in fact, purchasing online is becoming super easy for everyone. Also for people which are not particularly savvy on how everything works. Nonetheless, of course, as customers, they have rights, they have expectations, and this kind of expectations needs to be managed. Usually when someone purchases something online for the first time, let's say the first wall they hit is the shipping time. That's the 95% is the first question that people get. It's completely normal. In this regard, of course, CRM connected to conversational AI can be a huge help. In this case, at least what has been my experience so far, most of the people really appreciate having constant updates on the status of their shipping. This, of course, it's very hard to be done by a human, especially for businesses that do thousands of shippings a day, like Amazon. However, it's possible to completely automatize and be sure that people get not only updates over email or WhatsApp or messages, wherever feels comfortable to them, to get updates, but also to have someone who's going to check on real time where the parcel is. And that's like a huge difference. At the same time, the second wall, and this is especially a reality for, I would say, fashion / retail kind of brands, return shippings. Again, it's a very similar story in terms of following up with the client on all the possible steps to be sure that someone feels comfortable in knowing that if a purchase goes wrong, or if the product doesn't come as expected, or there is a change of heart for any reason, there's a consolidated process that assists the customer to actually be able to return and get the money back, which is, brings peace of mind to a lot of people. On the digital side, especially on travel, this is completely different. On the digital side, most of the times, you're purchasing either software or you're purchasing a digital good where there is no shipping time. You purchase and your product immediately gets activated. In case of travel, it's slightly different, of course, but there are quite a lot of rules in between how the money go from a supplier to another. It's actually very intricate kind of industry. Therefore, there are extremely tight rules that needs to be fully understood. Most of customers don't, and honestly, I can't blame them because after so many years in travel, I have my doubts still. So it's really understandable. And the classic, let's say, last 2 years that we all lived is about refunds. Flight canceled, perhaps positive COVID case that blocks from traveling, or a country blocks, these kind of situations. In that case, unfortunately, conversational AI can only help this much.
Yes.
The truth is, these are all complex cases that require human beings to get in touch with multiple partners around the world to be sure that each single case gets chased. So how can a brand actually prove to a client that they're doing their best? By really trying to enforce expedite refunds, talk to the potential suppliers, try to accommodate them, try to assist them in any possible way. And of course, in this case, the conversational AI comes in assistance to take care of all the other queries in order to reduce the pressure on humans to really only focus on what requires human focus or attention to be done.
That's quite interesting, and I think in the last couple of years, it's also brought about the scalability issue. A lot of what really was exposed during the last 2 years was how effectively can you scale up operations without really messing up the fundamentals.
That's very complex to do.
Yeah. There's always this there's always this gap between scalability and highly customizable experiences. So for people who say that we want to provide very, very personalized experiences, can you also provide it at scale? And I hope and I think conversational AI is that the element that is bridging that little problem that many businesses have to a certain extent.
Absolutely. I mean, everyone, I guess everyone should read once in a lifetime the book Delivering Happiness that speaks about Zappos.
Yes.
And that's absolutely, I would say, very relevant in this regard. The final goal would be to have a sort of mixed model of AI plus human beings able to deliver such an experience to the customers.
Yes.
That's very complicated to achieve, I would say, but possible.
Yeah. And I think that's also like the essence of the whole digital transformation narrative, that neither party is trying to replace each other. It's mostly how can man and machine work better together and prioritize to play to each other's strengths. Like I mean, for higher order skills, you always prefer a human agent to come into the picture and handle it. And again, large scale automated queries, if it can be taken off the human agent's shoulder, he or she can put himself to better use. I wanted to sort of, deep dive into another, coming into conversational AI and, chatbots, voice and chat-based bots. You've been with, e-commerce and travel companies, and you've had a very expansive overview of this particular space. And again, speaking from the Dubai MENA region, are customers still wary to talk to, or when they are aware of the fact that they're speaking to a bot, mostly a chatbot, or now in this case, voice is also gaining traction. But are customers still wary to talk to them, or do they still come back and say, I still want to speak to a human agent, despite what the query is?
Well, actually, yes and no. I would say people are very aware of speaking with the bot only when the bot sucks. Or when they get frustrated. So in that case, absolutely yes. Overall, I believe I was reading about this topic a few days ago, where I think was Insider, but don't quote me because I might be wrong. I think it was Insider was sharing statistics where around 40% of people express happiness in dealing with let's say bots before human beings, as it expedites the overall process. I believe that's should be told. So yes, people definitely understand when they're speaking with the bot, and overall, I believe the real discriminator is, and people are smart, so they understand when it happens, if a brand is using bot to assist people or to slow them down in the process of reaching to a human being, and it's honestly night and day kind of difference.
Yes. It takes you back to the era when we had to, dial up IVR facility. And I mean, I from experience knew, if what combinations would take me to a human agent, because that would always be hidden at the end of, whatever combinations that you have to go through to get to a particular person. But I think with automation, As long as queries are answered and resolutions are given, I think people are more than happy to, they're fine with it because they've gotten something out of it. And this is not just data being collected, and they're not repeating themselves over and over again. Okay, what is the query? What is wrong with this particular thing? Speaking about the same thing, what should the metrics be for brands that are high on digital transformation, high on automation, and automated processes in customer support and experience? What should they be looking at to ensure that this works, it reflects customer sentiment, and this is doing more good than harm? Like, what should they be looking at? What should they be tracking? What are your thoughts on that?
Warren Buffett will respond the revenues. Simple as that, bottom line revenues. No, but on a serious note, I would say, of course, it will be important to understand the response rate of the combination of human and bots. At the same time, I'm a huge fan or believer in the concept of NPS applied to different statuses, different stages of the funnel. So in general, keeping a pulse on, let's say, customer feelings, customer satisfaction, super important. And then for the brands that want to go above and beyond what I just said, I believe sentiment analysis is also great for that, which basically means analyzing all the chats, whether verbal or written, clusterize the kind of comments and understand if they are polarized in a direction or another, and trying to have an understanding on how the actual interaction, besides the satisfaction, goes. It's very important. It's super hard because it really requires a lot of computational power, but it's very important.
Do you see like any tech trends that are going to positively affect this particular space? I mean, yes, machine learning and automation and all of that. But apart from that, like, what are the things that you would keep track of? And do you think, and that you think will, in turn affect customer support or customer experience, say in the next 1 year, 2 years?
I would say quantum computation, most likely. The thing is, in terms of learning time for from a classic machine, it takes really a long time to be able to discern and understand the context of a human to be able to respond. Quantum computation actually can assist in speeding up this process multiple thousands times, and actually bring a machine up to speed in terms of being able to truly understand a human being beyond, let's say, the obvious kind of scope.
I think this is also going to help a lot with the emotional intelligence of automated processes in terms of
so that's a good question. I've been working on a project, sort of project about these topics quite some time ago. I guess it very much depends on what we mean by emotional intelligence. I would split emotional intelligence from empathy. So what we want to achieve is to have a conversational AI which is capable of showing a degree of empathy towards a customer problem. Perhaps I don't want to go into medical, because even though medical is a big topic for chatbot, I prefer to leave it on the side because it's a complex topic and it's very polarizing. Let's take in the travel space. If someone is forced to cancel a trip, perhaps, of course that person is going to be frustrated, at least. So having a super cold kind of chats of give ticket number, give reference number, these are the conditions, it's not going to cut it. Maybe it's going to get the job done, maybe, but most likely it's a cold interaction with someone who's already frustrated. Being able to show actually a degree of smart empathy, which is like, dear Jude, we're sorry to hear so, but not as an automatized message, but something crafted makes a difference.
And this will also make, I'm so sorry, but this will also make the life of the human agent, which it might end up reaching, a lot easier, because people take out all the anger and frustration that the bot creates on the person at the end of the day.
That's a very true topic. On the other hand, it's also true that this can't be exaggerated, as on the other side, human beings, I don't think there is any chatbot that passed the Turing test, as far as I'm aware. Maybe I'm wrong, but so people know when they're speaking with the machine. For the ones that don't know about it, the Turing test is when it's performed the blind test to understand if a person understands to be interacting with the machine. And the truth is, if you're aware that you're interacting with a machine and perhaps you're in a rush, or you just want a query to be solved, maybe you're not in the mood to be empathized by a machine that by definition does not feel anything. So it's a very subtle kind of line that needs to be, in my professional opinion, respected, I would say.
I totally agree with that. And I think each brand has to discover that particular line that works for them. Technology can empower them to discover that, but it can't really spoon feed and say, okay, this is what the line is for you. This is brilliant talking to you. I just have one more question before, we can go on and on, otherwise I'll eat into your calendar. I have one more question. There's a lot of folks who are, brands building, starting up, and, they're also looking at, say, entering this particular digital space and introducing automation. What do you think a brand should look for when they are sort of getting into conversational AI and automating, the customer experience part of things? What should the best practices be?
The first best practice, which is also the most important, is to not believe that all the customer problems, so all the customer support problems, are going to be solved with a snap of their fingers. Yes. That's one of the main issues that I've seen happening multiple times over the years, and it creates a lot of problems. This is not how it works. In fact, whenever a business is thinking about moving into conversational AI, they should be really mindful of the amount of time they need to spend on really analyzing how the single conversations go, to be able to address to the machine how to actually change or how to build the actual experience between the machine and the person, which takes a long time. It's not an easy task. It's not a task that should be performed by anybody. So do not, let's say, externalize the problem. Do not roll the barrel on a machine, because machines are not ready for that.
Yeah.
And that's the first one. The second best practice is to, as much as possible, try to deal with a partner which has a direct experience on the vertical the brand is dealing with. And that's super, super important. The reason for that is the basic of conversational AI is the amount of training the AI had in a specific language, in a specific region, and in a specific business. Yeah. The reason for that is by region, or let's say language, there are different nuances on how people interact with the ones in front of themselves, whether it's a machine or it's a human being. At the same time, the interactions are completely different based on the vertical we are dealing with. Therefore, in order to expedite the process as much as possible, it's a good idea to take advantage of the machines that are already learned from other businesses. And this is something I would strongly recommend to look at.
This is brilliant. I think all our viewers should be taking notes at this. It's very insightful, to be very honest. And I'm so happy that I had this conversation with you, Vittorio.
I appreciate it so much.
It's been brilliant to have you on the 20 Minute Moat podcast. I have another bunch of questions that we could go on and on and on and about. But given it's called the 20 Minute Moat, I think I'll conclude.
Maybe we're gonna have another time. Maybe it's gonna be another chat in the future. We're gonna
absolutely. I think we can always do that. I'm more than happy to have this conversation. Taken a step forward. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us on the 20 Minute Moat. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jude. Have a nice day.